All right. It says we're live. So, welcome everybody. My name is Brad, and with me here is Bob, and we are the people behind Bob Mac 3D. And we thought we would have a Facebook Live session here so that everybody could ask us questions, meet us, and see what the whole sculpting world and 3D printing world is like. I guess I'll start off by saying that I've been a war gamer all my life, really, since I was a little kid, playing board games, playing Avalon Hills, Luftwaffe, and really have enjoyed the hobby. And so I'm pretty excited to be working with Bob on Bob Mac 3D. Bob, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Why not? I tell you what, you've done those presentations before, haven't you?
Yes.
I can tell. I'm Bob. I'm the 3D designer for Bob Mac 3D, so I design all the models. Brad here does all the printing and all the various admin bits, so I don't have to. So I love him lots. Saves me having to do it. Have I been wargaming for a while? Yeah, I've been wargaming since before I was a teenager. Done lots and lots of gaming. I started off with plastic Airfix kits and Matchbox. I used to love Matchbox kits. I thought they were absolutely great. Using rules from the library, I had that book out as long as I could possibly take it out every single time. Moved into Micro Armor a bit, did a lot of that, did a lot of Cold War gaming, and done all sorts of things since. Got to be said, pretty much my dream job making model tanks for wargamers. Lots to be said for it. So, Brad, tell me what's on the agenda. What are we talking about first?
Well, really, I thought we would start off talking about why we're here, which is our new Kickstarter coming up, and that is the West Germans. And I thought the thing to really talk about when we're talking about the West Germans is what goes through our mind when we're putting a Kickstarter together. Obviously, the West Germans is a great topic, and Cold War West Germans, of course, spans from the 1950s all the way through till unification, right, in the 90s. And
Yep.
how did we decide upon Leopard 2, the Martyr, when there's such a plethora of vehicles to choose from, especially when you're going from American supplied vehicles early on, and then the early German experimentations with some of their early vehicles, and then evolving into the Leopard 1 and then the Leopard 2. And I just thought it's an interesting thought process that when you're putting together a Kickstarter, we only have so many models that we can do. I mean, it would be great if we could model every single West German piece of armor that was out there and offer it in one big Kickstarter. But the reality is that time and effort and energy just doesn't allow that, right? We have to focus on certain vehicles. And so it might be interesting to have a conversation about that. Go ahead, Bob.
Didn't we have a poll? I seem to remember we had a poll for this one.
We did.
We asked the public what they actually wanted, and the Leopard 2 was absolutely the winner. It doesn't surprise me much. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry, our audience out there. You're all a bunch of power gamers, and it shows in your choices. I'd have been happily doing Leopard 1. To be honest, I'd be happy doing anything. I don't really mind what I model. They've all got interest. They're all exciting in their own way. But Leopard 2's was the one everybody wanted. You Leopard 1 fans, I reckon if you hold on a little while, there's a pretty good chance at some point we'll do a Leopard 1. I can't see it not happening. It's such a widely used tank by all sorts of people. It would be strange if we didn't do it. But we still have to make some decisions about what we put in and what in, because let's face it, if I had an open vote, everybody would vote for everything, because that's what gamers want. They want the entire lot now, preferably for free. Got some news for you guys. Ain't happening for free. That's not going to happen at all. So the Kickstarter has a pretty standard format. You may well have noticed this. We tend to do. Where's my fingers? There's no that way. I tend to do a tank, an APC, a truck, Maybe something that's vaguely artillery-like, although we didn't choose to do it this one. We did an anti-tank thing instead, and one other thing. So that's your standard format. Matt, talk to us about which ones go with what. So we picked the Leopard 2. What do we have to go with it?
Well, right now we've announced that we have the Marder to go with it and the Unimog 404. So those are our announced 3 vehicles that we've got going with the West German Kickstarter.
Yep, which sounds good. Are we going to let slip to all the boys and girls out there what the other things are, or are we going to make them wait? How mean are we feeling?
Well, we should have discussed this right before we went on air, right? So we could figure this out.
We did discuss it.
Bob and I,
you've just forgotten.
Bob and I like to hold off what each of the vehicles is as a surprise as we reveal them going towards the launch of the Kickstarter. It's fun for us, and hopefully it's fun for the audience. But since this is our first live stream and kind of a momentous event, I say we tell them what the missing vehicles are.
All right. Okay. Well, the one you're going to see, you should be seeing this on Monday, to be honest. We should have some prints. We're going to do the Jaguar 2, which is an anti-tank vehicle with tow missile on top. It's basically Kanonen Jagdpanzer. That's the 90mm Jagdpanzer that the Germans had. It's quite famous, which they dispensed with the gun because it was obsolete and wouldn't go through the armor. And they basically put a hole in the top of the roof and bunged a tow missile in it, which makes it an awful lot more effective. So the Jaguar 2. And what's the other one we're going to do, Matt?
We're going to do...
Brad. How long have we worked together, Brad?
Yeah, 3 years.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
The Luch is going to be the next one. So the recon vehicle, which I'm pretty darn excited about, is going to be the last main vehicle in the Kickstarter.
Yeah, it's going to be a big beast. It's not a little vehicle.
No, which is fascinating to me, that they made this 8-wheel vehicle that's sizable. Of course, next to their new one, it looks small, right?
Well, yeah, those the new APCs that are around. Is it they got boxes? They have got boxes, haven't they? The new one. That thing's the size of a house.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting. One of the fun things about this journey in 3D printing is when you print off all these vehicles, you can compare them next to each other size-wise. You just put them together, and it's amazing how small or how big you thought something was. But when you get it printed off to scale and you measure it next to a Leopard 2, a Leopard 2 is a big tank. Right. And I don't know if it's probably not the biggest tank that we produced, but it's up there, right? It's a big tank. But then you put it next to the Marder, which in my head, right, has always been a smaller APC kind of thing. And then you realize, no, they're pretty close to the same size, right? And that's amazing because, of course, I've never seen these live, right? So I can't compare the two. But they're pretty sizable. They're pretty comparable next to each other.
Yeah, you need to get 10 guys in that Marder. Has to be fairly big, or they ain't gonna fit.
Yeah, and you're not getting 10 guys in the Leopard 2, right?
Comfortably, anyway.
So I also want to mention, as we're talking about the West Germans, we're talking about the core models, right? Core models for us is the Leopard 2, the Marder, and we did the version that is the 80s version. So it's the Marder 1A2, although the stretch goals will have other options. So we have the Leopard 2, the Marder. We're going to have the Jaguar, and the Luch, and the Unimog 404. So those are the 5 core models that are going to be in the Kickstarter. And of course, we have all the stretch goals, right? So we won't announce those here, but the stretch goals are going to be a lot of fun for this particular Kickstarter.
Yep, and don't forget, we've got something ultra special for the Turbo backers as well. Tell us about Turbo backers.
Oh, it's Turbo backers. So several Kickstarters ago, we came up with the concept of Turbo backer, which is we are going to make a unique model that is only for them. This model will never be sold. You can't get it on our store. You can't get it after the Kickstarter. It is a one and done special model. And this unique thing is something fun. Typically, it is a vehicle that was in development. Maybe it was, never actually put into production, but it was something cool and unique. And we thought that was a great idea for the Turbo backers. Bob?
Yeah. And there ain't no 3D. The one we got picked this time, there's certainly no 3D models of it out there. Yeah. So if you want it, you got to come to us.
And be a Turbo backer.
A Turbo backer, yeah.
And I will say, we really appreciate our Turbo backers. It really helps the Kickstarter to get going. It really helps us meet our numbers. It really, really helps hitting the stretch goals so that we can make all the models, that we can provide all those extra fun things for everyone that's out there.
Yeah. Feeds my small child, sort of important.
Feed Bob's small child.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Back our Kickstarter. Feed Helena. Sounds like a logo to me.
The other thing I'll mention in this Kickstarter that is new for us is we have always tried to find a figure sculptor. We wanted to add crew to the vehicles. And we've tried before. We've partnered with some people who had some pre-made crew, and we've stuck them in some turrets and a little of that, which has worked out well. But now we've teamed up with a sculptor who goes by Combat Octopus. Some of you may know him. He has a Patreon. He's on My Mini Factory, but he does some great sculpting. He's done some Cold War stuff, some ultra modern figures. He's doing some Russians in Chechnya now that look just gorgeous. But we've teamed up with him to have a crew option, and the crew options look great. His work is fantastic. I'm really, really happy with what he's done. I'm going to have some pictures up on Monday of the crew options. Not all of them, just an example of what he's been working on so that you can see how the crew fits perfectly with the sculpted vehicles. And the mesh between the two is really nice, right? We're giving the sculptor the base models for the vehicles so that he can sculpt the crew right into it. And hopefully on Monday, you'll see how that really, really pans out.
Yeah, we've got a lovely little model of the Marder Milan gunner actually wrapped around Milan firing it. It's really nicely done. None of this sort of looks like it's sort of just been glued on as an afterthought. They integrate nicely. They're nice.
Yeah. The other thing I want to mention, too, is that for this Kickstarter, we have teamed up with Jake Richards, who I see is in the chat. And he is the painter that you have seen his exceptional painting pictures for both the Martyr and the Leopard 2.
Yeah. Can you share your screen and show us one of Jake's models? Can you do that? Ask difficult questions. I might.
Well, I think I can. It'll take me 1 second to figure out. So entertain everybody why I am.
Oh, I've got now to entertain everybody. Right. I could tell some jokes, but perhaps I'd better not. What else have we got to talk about? At some point, talking of sharing screens, we'll open my screen up and I'll let you all have a look. I'll let you all have a look at the Jaguar, I think, because I'm working on it. It's nearly done, and I can show you that and maybe get a little bit of insight into how the design process works. Excuse me. I use Fusion 360 for mine, but there's lots of other 3D design things out there. And maybe we can talk a little bit about the design process. How are you going over there, Brad? I still want to call you Matt. Why do I want to call you Matt, Brad?
I don't know. It's weird. Yeah. I am ready to go. And I certainly want to show off some of Jake's stuff here. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, share screen. And I am going to go here and hit share. There we go.
There we go.
So this
looks all right, doesn't it?
This is the Martyr that Jake painted up in this snow camouflage, which is just awesome, right?
It looks cold.
And I will tell you that I like doing painting. Hopefully some of you see my painting videos and my work out there, but I'm what I call a gamer painter, which means I paint to game. I'm trying to get the thing on the table as fast as possible, probably because I'm gaming the next day or that night. And so I want it to look nice, but Jake's like a professional model painter. And every time I see this, I'm like, wow.
You just got up your game. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
You need to up your game.
He definitely inspires me to do better. That is for sure. So at those moments when I'm rushing it, I'm like, okay, I think about Jake and I'm like, I'll take a step back and be a little bit more precise. But in this example, if you look at how the green is showing through some of the whitewashed paint, I mean, it just looks awesome. It's a brilliant piece. He posted today, I don't know if you've seen it, Bob, but he posted today in our group his Leopard 2 with the camo netting.
Yeah, I saw that.
That
must be said, he made a nice job of that NATO camo.
Yeah, nice job of the NATO camo. Yeah, so we really appreciate Jake. But yeah. So Jake posted in the comments, and he is asking,
"Where are you looking? Because I can't see any comments.
You can't see any comments. Maybe I'm the only one that gets to see the comments.
Well, okay, read them out to us then.
Oh, but Jake is asking the question I wish we could answer, which is, what's next after West Germans?
Well, those of you that are astute observers will notice a pattern to our Kickstarters. Because we generally do a Western one and then we do an Eastern one, usually. So there's a good chance there might be something Soviet in the pipeline. Having said that, Brad and I have been talking about mixing it up a bit. So it's a mystery even to us, actually. We don't really know. So
we don't really know.
We don't really know. But you could bung your suggestions in the chat if you like. And you never know your luck. I mean, inspired.
I'd like to tell everybody that Bob and I have an entire year planned out ahead of time. We know exactly what we're doing. We know all the models, but it doesn't work that way.
And even when we do plan it out, we change your mind.
It changes. Yeah. I will say that the some of the most enjoyable interactions with Bob have been planning a Kickstarter, talking about the vehicles that exist, talk about what we want to do, what gamers want, what fits into wargaming scenarios. That's a lot of fun. And then coming up with the stretch goals too is a lot of fun to do.
We don't just make it up, surprisingly enough. Surprises me every time we don't. But there we go. We think quite hard about, well, what's going to sell? Because what's going to sell is what you want, basically. And we think about how does it fit into games. So it's all very well me producing, I don't know, an armored recovery vehicle. And I bet you there's a few of you going out there perking up and thinking, armored recovery vehicle? Oh, I quite like an armored recovery vehicle. I do. Yeah, the trouble is you're the only ones. It doesn't fit with a lot of what people want to do.
Yeah.
So we need to think about that. So there's a good reason why we have a tank. I'm going to get my finger in. I'm going to count with my fingers. A tank and an APC and a truck, because those are the fundamentals of what people need on the tabletop. Be your 28mm gamer or your 15mm Team Yankee gamers. That's pretty much what you need. We do like to do a few odd ones, though, just to spice things up. And partially that's why we decided to do the Turbo Backer, because it gave us an opportunity to do something that wasn't, core fundamental to any army, but was nice to do.
Yeah.
So, it takes us a while usually to get it sorted out, and we cross things out and add things on and move around and change stuff.
For
right up to the last minute.
Yeah, last minute until we submit it in. Jake also asked, will the figures scale down to 15mm? And
I would have. Well, you can print anything at any scale you like. Okay, that's the first fundamental of 3D printing. You can shrink it down. That printer will print 1/20th of a millimeter. That's even the basic. That's a basic bog standard photon. Will print at 1/20th of a millimeter. So it's not about whether it'll print, because it will. It's about whether you can see the detail, but that's not too much of a problem. The important thing about printing down there is strength, and that's sort of a personal taste to a certain degree. What I will say is tank commanders tend to be sitting, I'm going to sort of about there, So there's not a lot sticking out to be weak. The Marder gun is wrapped around the thing. So I reckon they'll print at 15 mil. Absolutely lovely would be my guess.
Yeah, and I'll have some photos for Monday of 15 mil examples, but I think they'll print no problem.
I don't think it will be a problem at all. I think they'll go absolutely awesome. They'll probably go quite a lot smaller. So in fact, I suspect the tanks will be the ones where the issues are before the figures do. You start shrinking them down. Having said that, some people have printed my stuff at 1/300th. Was never designed to do that. Well, even I did once just to see. There you go. M48, one of my M48 at 1/300th. It hasn't fallen to bits yet.
Yeah, nice. Now, painting 15 millimeter figures on the tank will be interesting, but I imagine they would really, really help.
That's why they make little fine paintbrushes, Brad, Matt.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Hey, whatever. Jake say he's heading out. So Jake, thanks for participating, asking some questions, and being here for our live broadcast here. So yeah, back to what I was saying when we started this, bringing in Combat Octopus as a sculptor for the figures, and then Jake as a expert painter has really been fun to see all those dynamics happening with our models, with what you and I started, Bob. It's been a fun journey. And I thought, talking about that journey, Bob and I have been doing this now for 3 years. Whether you realize
really? That long?
Time flies.
Yeah,
3 years. Isn't that crazy? The West Germans are 9th Kickstarter. And when I first started with Bob, your 3D tools were completely different tool set than what you're using today. And I thought it might be fun for you to talk about that a little bit, from going from 3D Builder to Fusion 360.
Well, I could certainly talk about that. Right. I didn't realize I was going to talk about 3D Builder.
I know.
Let me load it up a little bit.
Okay. I threw you to the wolves, right?
There we go. No, that's all right. It's not a problem. The good thing about 3D Builder, and one of its real advantages, is it's a tiny little program. It loads up really quickly. A lot to be said for it, especially if your computer's not all that meaty, because it'll run. Right now, if I press present, that would share screen. Look at that. Sharing screen. Yeah. Right. Blah blah blah. Don't show these tips again. Share screen. Right. Window. It's one of those ones where it doesn't show all the windows. Brilliant. Let's do an entire screen then. That one. Share. Right. Hang on a minute. So this is 3D Builder, and this is the way I started. And that is not a Bob Mac 3D model, just because I didn't have any queued up and ready to go. This one is a master I did for Heroics and Ross, which should be. We'll give Andy a punt. We'll give Andy a little punt here, shall we? Which should be available, brand new, remastered. Panzer IV should be available about now. So if 6 mil's your thing and you like metals, go and ask Andy where the hell it's got to. So this is 3D Builder. 3D Builder, I mean, you can do nice models in 3D Builder. As you can see, you can do some really quite sophisticated stuff. It's not quite as good as the more sophisticated programs, but it is dead simple to learn. If you're going to start out with 3D, starting with 3D Builder, not a bad place to be. It's free for Windows. Yeah, if you've got a Mac, get a proper computer, then you can get it. And it's easy and straightforward to use. And there's a lot to be said for it. And it's the way I started. But I don't know if you can see. You might be able to see there. There's a little on the Scherzen, on the turret. There's a little bevel. Doing that in 3D Builder is a pain in the bum. Doing it in Fusion, as I'll maybe point out in a minute, is a lot easier. So, yes, you can do sophisticated things. You have to think quite hard about how to do stuff sometimes. So, that's 3D Builder if you're starting.
And so the thing I'll have a conversation about is that when we were doing our first Kickstarter, which is the Vietnam Kickstarter, when we did the M113s, the M48 Patton, the Sheridan, and all that stuff, was that all done in 3D Builder?
Absolutely. I think the first 2 or 3 were done in 3D Builder, and there's nothing wrong with them models.
No,
they're not bad models at all. It's just you have to work at it a bit, and you have to use a lot of imagination at times to make the tools you've got do what you want to. But eventually I moved on up to Fusion, and if I do a present again, share screen, no, it still doesn't recognize it as being a window open. Never mind, we'll do the entire screen again, and here we go. Oh, this is Fusion, and things are easier to do in Fusion. So my models have got better since I've started using it. Not a huge amount better, because they were pretty good to start with, but certainly a little bit better.
Well, I've certainly noticed that there's been more detail in the past, let's say 3-4 Kickstarters. As the Kickstarters go forward, I've noticed that you'll add more and more and more and more.
That's less to do with the tool and more to do with just getting more familiar with what you can get away with in terms of size of stuff.
Right.
Now, bear in mind, I started doing 1/300th, and if I draw everything at 1/100th scale, it doesn't matter what I'm intending it to print at, I draw everything at 1/100th. Now, basically, the smallest thing you can reasonably see on a wargaming standard model at sort of, well, not sort of meter-ish, 3 feet, 2 feet, is about 0.2 of a millimeter, assuming you've painted it nicely and highlighted it and stuff. So 0.2 of a millimeter at 1/100th translates to 1.6 of a millimeter. So basically, you've got to exaggerate the detail that much. Yeah, all the details exaggerated when you're doing a 1/300th model, or it won't show up.
Right.
Now, you're doing a 1/56 model. Well, that means you can basically do 0.1 on your 1/100th, and it'll scale up to 0.2. So that's what, 6 times smaller. And it just took me a little while to get my head around the fact that I could go to that level of detail and it would show up on the bigger models. And it was just a bit of a learning process. So it's less to do with the software and more to do with the perception, I think, that little bit. There are definitely things that are a lot easier in Fusion compared to 3D Builder. I showed you the beveling. Have I got any beveling? Yeah, I mean, have I got any nice? Have I got bevel? I'm sure I must have beveled everything. I bevel all sorts of stuff. I'm just trying to find something I've beveled. Oh, there's some on the end there. Ooh. No, that one's actually rounded.
Yeah, when you zoom in and you show that level of detail, all the little clamps and tie down spots and tools, it's amazing.
Yeah, though that you see the little well, I don't know what they are, screw heads. I suspect they're bolt heads on that peak there. That when it prints out at 1/100th will be 0.2 millimeters.
Right. Yeah.
Which is tiny. Yeah. Yes. Sometimes one of the difficulties in working in any 3D is you zoom in like this. I often work in zoomed in like this, and you think, well, I'm zooming on. Say I'm working on this tie down here. Well, it looks a bit thick and chunky, doesn't it? Until you realise that distance there is probably only 0.1 of a millimeter. It's 1/10 of a millimeter in 1/100. It's tiny.
Yeah.
And one of the tricks to being a good 3D sculptor is keeping that in mind. You see so many models out there that have got beautiful detail on it, but it's so small you either never see it or it wouldn't print. So that's one of the things you've got to clearly keep in mind when you're sculpting.
Yeah, I'll tell you on the flip side, which is the printing and the painting, the extra detail when you're painting these models really help it stand out. Meaning every place that I see on this particular model, right? You see all the bolt heads on the side, you see the tie downs, all those are places where they're going to get, a pin wash, they're going to get detailed, and it just adds a visual interest to the model that I find that models that don't have that level look different. And in the beginning, that different look, it took me a while to figure out what that difference was. And the difference is really the detail, right? And the plainer model looks plain. It's not visually interesting in comparison. And it's one of the things I really like about your models is the level of detail.
Thank you. While we're here, this is the Jaguar. So this is the Jaguar 2. It's nearly done. There's a wee bit to do there. And as you can see, that's looking remarkably blank. And it seems to lack any tracks at the moment. So there's a few bits and pieces to do, but we're nearly finished with it. So this is, I mean, you probably can see if we look at it from the side, you can imagine that this was at one point a Jagdpanzer Canon. You'd have had a mantle there and a big gun sticking out the front. So they've converted it to a missile carrier. They've put some applique armor down the side and on the front. It's still not exactly very heavily armored, though. But it's slightly better than a Jagdpanzer Canon, or a Canon and Jagdpanzer to call it its proper name.
Yeah.
Go on.
Go ahead. It's an interesting vehicle. I think ultimately it's pretty rare that you had a tank and you converted it now just to a missile carrier.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of one. It's usually APCs, isn't it?
Right. It's usually APCs, not.
In fact, this sort of style of tank destroyer is pretty much unique to the German army. I can't think of anything that's similar. I mean, they made the Jaguar 1, which isn't a conversion. It was a new build, but it looks pretty much like this.
Right.
Yeah, interesting. So the tow missile hides under these hatches here. The hatches come up to vertical, so that the launcher is protected from the sides. These are periscopes. So interestingly, they go up to the level of the launcher. They come up quite a long way, about there-ish. So you can put your tank hull down behind a ridgeline, and you can just poke the launcher over, and the commander using his sight can just see over the top as well, making this thing really hard to see if it's positioned properly.
Oh, interesting. And they have two sights. So is one for the gunner?
I think this is a gunner's sight when the missile launcher's not up.
Interesting.
Because I can't see it being for the driver because it's in the wrong place.
Right.
So yeah, it might be that you can keep the launcher subtract down, have this up, makes you much less vulnerable to artillery fire when you're waiting.
Right. Fascinating. Which is one of the fun things about doing these Kickstarters is you really get into the vehicles and you start learning all these details that I never knew before at such a level. I have a great story about when we were doing the Sheridan, and the Sheridan's turret has these weird, some kind of attachment bolts on the top of it. And they look like they serve no purpose. In any photos you've ever seen in Vietnam or something like that, they're not being used. I thought, are these used for? And what I found out through research is to teach people how to shoot the Shillelagh missile. They had an elaborate instruction tower that they would put on top of the turret. And this was like early virtual reality that it would visualize the shooting of the missile somehow. It was weird. You could see in I don't know if it's the Tankograd books or wherever, they have a couple pictures of the tower attached, but they specifically designed the turret of the Sheridan to be able to attach this training aid. And that's why those bolts are there, and they serve no other purpose. But until you got in the middle of it and look at these things, I never thought about it until it was, a 3D model, and then it was fun to figure out.
Yeah, I remember drawing those bolts and wondering, it has to be said, there's some bolts here. Well, they're definitely here, and I'm definitely drawing them.
You're like, why are they here?
Why are they here? Talking of that, and one question, maybe somebody would know the answer to, because I don't. This box. What do they keep in the box? Well, it's an interesting box. As you can see, there's a hinge here, and it's got a flap down there. So this whole thing flips back to give you two open sides. What do they keep in the box?
Yeah,
and it's such a specialist shaped box. It's not just an ordinary tin box with a flap. So there's something going on with it, but I have no clue what it's for. Maybe I just need to do a bit of research. But as I was drawing it, I thought, I don't know.
Yeah. So is the tow launcher tripod, I can see there on the back of the
that's that bit there.
So I'm wondering if that's the optics.
Now you no, I don't think so, and I'll tell you why I don't think so. Hang on a minute. Why don't I think so? Come here. Why don't I think so? Oh, no. Maybe it is, because I thought I don't know if you can. Let's click that. So this is a Canon and Jagdpanzer plan.
Right.
It's got it's similar there, but there's 2 boxes, isn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, you might be right. That's a really good thought. It may well be the box that goes with the tow.
Just to guess.
Well, hang on a minute. Let me show you something else. What do I need? So here's one I did earlier. This is the tow from our. Did we do this one for the U.S. Marine Corps? I think we did, or did we do this one for the Cold War Americans? I can't remember.
We did this for the Cold War American, which is the American tow Jeep.
Oh yeah, did we not put it in the shop the other day?
I can't ever remember what we have in the shop we did, but I thought we put the tow Jeep in the shop, yes.
Yeah, okay. So if you like this model, it's available in our shop. What's the URL, Brad?
If you just go to bobmac3d.com, you'll go right to our store.
Right. So the tow is a tow launcher. The tow has this box, this control box here that goes with it. And I think, Brad, looking at the size of it, here's what. Look, I'll tell you what we could do. Let's copy it and see if it fits.
We'll put it right on the back of the.
Let's copy it and see if
the Jagdpanzer. Yeah, I mean from here, it looks
about right. Of course, this does presuppose I got both of them the right size. Where the hell's it gone? Oh, there it is. Right. Yeah, it's looking pretty good, isn't it?
Yeah, you have to add a little padding or something.
Yeah, I let's just move it over a bit.
Yeah,
I'd say it doesn't look bad. It looks a bit big, the box.
But you have to have padding around it, right?
Yeah, you've probably got padding around it. It may have a few other bits and pieces.
Yeah,
I'm fairly impressed with that guess, Brad. Well done. I think that's probably spot on.
And Bob, you should mention that's pretty rare for me because between the two of us, I am definitely the one that's less knowledgeable about Cold War armor.
Well, only a little bit. Only a little bit. I'm. What you're trying to say is I'm really sad and you're not.
I don't know about that.
And while we're here, then, and seeing as we've got a few minutes. This is what the Unimog looks like.
All right, let me add that back out. Yeah, and I thought the Unimog was a great print, and I have the Unimog painted up. We haven't shared the painted pictures of the Unimog yet, but I certainly have painted one up, and I'll have those photos out on Monday. But it's a great little vehicle.
It's a lovely little truck, actually.
Yeah,
a lovely little truck.
And what's interesting is that it's a little truck compared to the American M54 that we've done, the couple Soviet vehicles that we've done. Those are big trucks, and some of those trucks are the size of the Martyr, right? I mean, they're gigantic trucks, and this one is different. It's a nice, cool little truck.
Yeah. Is it 1.5 tons or is it 3? I think is it a 1?
I don't remember which it is. Yeah. What I do know is that when I was looking to do the paint job and doing the research on how to paint this up, if you go to the internet, you'll find that people love this as a 4x4 vehicle to go drive around. And there is several YouTube videos of people just driving these. And so while I was painting it up, I watched Unimog videos of people four-wheeling with these, and it was pretty fun.
And if you're really into it, there's at least 3 different Facebook groups dedicated to it. I suspect because it's small, it's reasonably cheap.
Yeah,
and thus people can afford to own them.
Yeah, people can afford to own them, and they're pretty fun, right?
All right, shall I stop sharing now?
Yep.
Let's do that.
We'll take that off. There you go.
There you go. All right. What am I doing? Where have you gone? I've lost you. Oh, there you are. Awesome. Right, which one of us, Brad's got the best book collection?
You do for sure. And that is focused on a single book right there. And that is Armies of the NATO Central Front.
Armies of NATO Central Front, yes.
Yes.
I can retire on the proceeds of selling that.
Yeah, very hard to find. Cool book. Yeah. Now you have a lot of stuff that over the years. So Bob and I meet once a week to focus in our Kickstarters, what we're doing, what our plans are. And so for the last 3 years, I have perused your bookshelf, Bob, but there's a lot of stuff that I cannot understand. So I'm just curious real quick what the red books are that are directly behind
this. Oh, that is Verbanden der Truppen der Wehrmacht und der Waffen SS. Which
of course
is better by a guy called Tessin. And he basically decided that he was going to make a note of every single German World War II unit there was. And there are 16. No, they're not 16 volumes because volume 16 is divided into 4 parts. To be honest, when I got it, it was the Bible. These days, you can get most of it available. You can get most of it online, to be fair. And, well, if somebody wants them, I'd be open to sensible offers. Well, by sensible, I mean outrageously expensive.
I bet. So one of our commenters was coming in the chat that one of the cool things about the Unimog is that it has portal axles, which gives it more ground clearance. And that's one of the cool things people like about the Unimog.
Right. Excuse me, I have a small child. Right, I'm in a meeting. Shut the door.
Nice. A special guest appearance.
A special guest appearance, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, she's running around only in her trousers. Great.
Great. That's the kind of parenting you want on display during a live Facebook.
Exactly. She's adorable and lovely, and I love her to bits. Her sense of timing sometimes is not the greatest.
So,
what axles did you call them?
Yeah, the portal axles.
And what's the portal axle? Tell me about portal axle.
That's a good question. Erica in the stream is the one who posted that. I don't know what portal axles are.
Right, okay, I think I do. You just hang on a minute. From the description, hang on. Let me do a quick present again. Share screen. Entire screen. That one. Share. I think what he means is this here. See how the axle goes like that, and the wheel drops down from it.
Yep.
I think that's what he means.
Yeah.
Doesn't the Hummer has them as well?
Yeah.
About it. Yeah, absolutely. Now, as a design choice in all my models, I tend not to put too much detail on the bits you can't see because it makes the models cheaper for our people. If you can't see it, there's a little point in doing it. So it's a little bit plain there, but you can certainly see the drop down part.
Yeah, which is fascinating, right? And Eric's saying you are correct that the higher axle hitting the top of the hub is one of the neat features about it. Gives it a higher clearance, of course, and makes the Unimog kind of unique. Yeah,
apart from the Hummer.
Apart from the Hummer, which did the same thing. So I'm guessing, right, that the Hummer, did they borrow that design from the Unimog?
I don't know. You know what I'm going to do while we're chatting? I'm going to ask Mr. Google a portal axle.
Who invented the portal axle? Probably the Germans in World War II, right?
Portal axles. Blah, 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 blah. I don't think the Unimog came first. Because apparently they were available on the Kubelwagen, according to Mr. Google.
Right. I mean, but that makes a lot of sense. That right, the same engineers that did the Kubelwagen were probably working on the Unimog.
It's not beyond the realms of possibility, is it?
Yeah. Right. So yeah.
Mr. Google doesn't know, or at least Wikipedia doesn't know.
Yeah, I will say that researching all the Cold War technology, all the Cold War things, whatever, you would think that it would be, fairly straightforward and easy. But I find that there's less information about Cold War than there is about World War II. Right?
Which is interesting, really, because all the received information, I mentioned Andy from Heroics and Ross, and I'm good friends with Andy because I do lots of work for him. we often talk about the hobby and the industry. Now he does it from a very 6mm viewpoint, but I suspect it applies across the board. And we talk about what's popular. And World War II is only a little bit more popular than Cold War. It is more popular. And you can tell by if you just go around on the 3D forums and look at the amount of people doing really nice, it must be said, 3D tank models for World War II compared to Cold War. But it's still, Cold War's pretty popular thing to do. Most gamers are our sort of age, old. And our youth was in the Cold War. I grew up Cold War gaming, but it was because it was ultra modern back then.
Yeah, it was ultra modern back then when I did it. Yeah, absolutely. I remember getting my first, 285th scale M1s and painting those up and thinking this is just the coolest thing since sliced bread.
I can well imagine that. Did you do them in Murdeck or not?
I did, absolutely.
Yeah, and are they used in Murdeck in Germany?
No, they're not. One of those things you learn, right, about Cold War when you're going through these Kickstarters is details like that the M1 never had Murdeck camouflage on it, nor did the Bradley.
No.
Used in Europe. They were just that green color until they went to the 3-color NATO. Fun fact
is because they didn't have all the colors in the new infrared, I think, suppression finish.
Right. So they just painted them green and sent them on.
Send them on. If it's any consolation, I painted my first Micro Armor M1s in Murdeck because let's face it, Murdeck is the coolest camouflage system ever.
It was fascinating. Yes. Now it's a very intimidating scheme to paint as a painter because it is very precise and they tell you where everything goes and you're all nervous about putting it there, but ultimately it is cool.
Yeah, it is painted by grunts though.
Yeah, right.
Who are nowhere near as fussy as you are.
Yeah, it's true. They just spray it on. They don't care. Get it out.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're doing Micro Armor, nobody's going to tell.
Yeah, no one's going to tell. It's true. I thought we would talk a little bit about the 3D hobby in general.
Okay.
And since you and we certainly didn't jump in the beginning when people were really starting, but I do feel 3 years now that we've seen a lot of change in the hobby. We've seen a lot of growth in the hobby. We've certainly seen a lot more people jump into the 3D space, right? Sculptors, marketplaces, different Kickstarters. And I have to say that I really like the growth that our slice of the world has seen, and our slice of the world being gamers, tabletop gamers in particular, and then historical gamers in particular, right? Bob and I always laugh about how we have a niche market, right? It's tabletop gamer, miniature tabletop gamer, historical miniature top gamer, and then you have to be Cold War tabletop gamer, which just narrows down the numbers. There's besides Bob and I think there's like 2 other people who are that kind of gamer, but we have
quite a lot of gamers out there.
I know,
but a small market. Sort of stuff. Not so many people producing it. It has to be said.
No, but for World War II, there's
don't start, guys. Don't start. No, you just stick to World War II. That sounds like a much better idea. Don't go anywhere near Cold War. Sorry,
But in, when I started this hobby, right, painting tabletop models and I really blossomed in the 90s is really, really, really when I got into it. And if you told me in the 90s that one day you're going to be able to basically print whatever vehicle you want in whatever scale you want, and then you can print as many as you want. I mean, can you imagine? I would say, yeah, that's a great fantasy, but it's never going to happen, right? And I would give you 10 good reasons why that would never happen. And yet here we are today, and 3D printing has really changed the way I game and the way I think about scenarios and the way I develop scenarios, the way I put tabletop games together, because it's just a lot more richer options than I had before. And I will tell you, as a painter, right, as someone who who paints models, and I love that aspect of it. And it has changed the way I paint. I would purchase a cast resin vehicle. Today, in my painting area, I have a Bradley that I got from Impress Models. I got this years and years ago when he first put them out, and it's still unpainted. And that's because I was always afraid to mess it up. And if I messed it up, I'd have to buy another one. I have to get it from England. I have to ship it here and so on and so forth. And so I never painted it. But 3D, I think of them as disposable, right? If I mess up a 3D printing job, the worst that can happen is I'll set it aside, print another one, and start over. And just that knowledge is a freedom for me to explore painting and mess around with painting that I've never had before. That fear has always kept me back. And now I can tell you I've never set aside one of these models. I just keep going and have learned a tremendous amount because of 3D printing. Yeah, I mean, it really has changed things for me from a painting perspective. Yeah.
From a scenario design perspective, right? So at some point in time, I'll punt up the URL to another website I have that has a bunch of game scenarios on it for various things I've done. So I design a lot of gaming scenarios. Brad does too, and he publishes his, but mine are a little more amateur. But nonetheless, I do enjoy designing scenarios. And previously, for the 3D revolution, you had to consider carefully what you had in your armies. Because if you didn't have it, you couldn't have it on the table. Not unless you were really clever and planned like several months in advance. These days, it doesn't matter, does it? Because I can just go and print one. Don't have enough Panzer IIIs? Well, I'll print a Panzer III. Don't have enough chieftains? I can print some more chieftains. Like overnight. I just need to leave a little bit of time to paint them.
Yeah.
So again, it revolutionizes what you can design and do because of the flexibility. But it has to be said, the thing that really, I mean, Brad and I joke that British people don't get excited. We just don't. Keen is about as far up as we'll go. But for this one thing, I'll say I was excited. And the thing that excited me most about 3D, the potential of 3D printing was, hang on a minute. If I learn how to design stuff, then I can have any tank in the universe that I want. I don't have to wait for anybody to make it. I can make it myself. And these things are so detailed. I can make it myself better, or at least as good as anybody else. And that was really exciting and liberating. Yeah, you want a bunch of Iranian mortars? The first thing I ever did was an Iranian mortar. Want a bunch of Iranian mortars? I can have a bunch of Iranian mortars, which nobody else is ever going to do.
True.
And that's brilliant. That's really not a good message for the rest of you guys out there. Don't listen to that. You need to buy our stuff, all right? Don't design your own. That's bad.
It's bad.
Yeah, bad. But no, absolutely. Have a go at it. Really, I mean it. It's liberating. And it ain't that hard. If I can do it, can't be that difficult, can it?
Well, you know, and I'll say too, to kind of wrap up the conversation about 3D printing, is that, you know, the detail in comparison to cast things in resin is phenomenal. Meaning that you used to try to figure out where, when you bought a cast vehicle, where it was in the production, because if you got the early one, it looked better than the later ones because the mold was getting worn out. And, you know, that the designers of those vehicles had to think about putting it in a mold and casting it and pulling it out, and you couldn't have undercuts. I mean, my best example here today is if you look on the back of, hopefully you can see this, the back of the Leopard 2, the tow cables that are here are free floating, meaning they're not connected to the tank. They're hanging correctly. There's a space between the back of the vehicle and the tow. There's no way you could cast this, right, in resin. That's never going to happen. But in 3D, that's the kind of detail that you can get. And it's a fun piece of detail. There's so many things like that there's no way you could cast it but in 3D printing, you can get away with it. And that 3D printing technology, right? You can't even keep up with it. I just got over right before Christmas from one of those Black Friday sales, a 12K printer, right? And what comes off a 12K printer is phenomenal, right? It's really, really some nice models. But I heard today they announced like a 24K version. I mean, it's like I didn't even have it for a month before they have the next one coming out, right? And it's just amazing, amazing. We did have Eric.
It was in the sale, Brad.
Yeah,
there's a reason.
Yeah, there's a reason, right? There's another model coming out. Eric did mention that he was following you on Thingiverse before we started the Kickstarters.
Yeah,
which
there are. If you're into 6mm, then there's a whole bunch of freebie stuff I did. It's under Bob _McKenzie, I think, MACKENZIE, if I recall right. It's most of it's not actual original designs. Most of it's I started by modifying Bergman stuff. Should we just say a word about Bergman?
Yeah.
Because let's face it, as names go in 3D design, he's the biggest because he's done a whole bunch of stuff and he's given it away for nothing.
Yeah.
And we owe a huge debt to Mr. Bergman because I certainly wouldn't be into 3D printing the way I am, and a whole bunch of other people wouldn't have started or wouldn't have thought it worth their while apart from that huge free resource. Yeah. Now, I'm trying to make money out of it, and Mr. Bergman giving away things for free doesn't help that, but nonetheless.
So my Bergman story really, is about our partnership, and that is when I'm into Vietnam gaming. Bob and I met because I was looking for a more detailed version of the Sheridan M113 M48 patent, and the Bergman models weren't to the level that I wanted. They were just too general for 28 mil.
Oh yes, they're well too big.
Yeah. And so, but great guy. I mean, the wealth of vehicles out there led me in my head to think, oh yeah, I could 3D print all this. This is amazing. Led me into the hobby. Led me to get going. So I think Bergman, really is quite a figure in our hobby for sure.
Yeah, he's basically the gateway drug.
Yeah, he's the gateway drug. Yeah. You download all those files. You start looking at all those files. Oh, I can print this. I can print this. I can print this. Yeah, and 48 gallons of resin later.
Well, that's because you print in 28 mil, Brad.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Right. If you print 6 mil, it's different.
6 mil. So, I will say that Bergman's stuff scales down lovely.
It does, right?
It does scale down absolutely beautifully down into 6 mil if that's your thing.
Yeah.
I would slice the gun barrels and thicken them up. In fact, I do slice the gun barrels and thicken them up. But other than that, this stuff scales down really nicely because it's designed in 1/100th for FDM printers, which didn't have a high resolution.
Right.
When you started.
Yeah. So the next technology piece that I'm waiting for is we have the 3D printer. I want to clean it up, pull the supports, and put it over the 3D painter and just hit Murdic camouflage and just have it perfect.
You reckon so?
Yeah, I'm just saying that's what I would like.
That's what you want,
right?
I would be happy with something that just the supports just fell off. The worst thing about 3D printing, from my point of view, is having to remove the bloody supports. Well, supporting in the first place is a pain, but taking them off is no fun either.
Well, we haven't talked a lot about the 3D printing side of the actual, but I have 3 years now. I have done hundreds of models, supporting them, printing them off. The piles of tanks that I have is amazing. In 15 mil, 20 mil, 28 mil, I have an entire basement filled with 3D printed vehicles. Some painted, but mostly not. And I have learned a lot over the years. And supports, man, if you're spending time and trouble with supports, you're not doing them right. Hot water, you put them in hot water for 3 minutes, and you just pull it apart. I should do a video on it about how easy it is. But all of our models, all the pre-supported models that I put together, they are designed just to break apart.
I think you should show us that video.
I'll have to do that video. I'll do that video because there is nothing to it.
Okay.
It is.
Does it work for the really little delicate things?
Oh yeah, for the 15 mil. Sometimes you have to be careful, right? and you know when that is, and I will clip a couple maybe before I do it. But otherwise, yeah, hot water bath, pull them apart. Done.
There you go. Right, to those people who are watching, this is your very, very last chance to ask us a question. You've got about a minute. So if anybody's got any desperately wants to ask us a question, now you can ask. We'll go over a couple of minutes if we need to answer them. Otherwise, we are winding down. Any final comments there, Brad?
Nope. All I got to say is that I am excited about the West German Kickstarter. If you're watching this, then go over to if you go to our website, bobmac3d.com, we have a link there to sign up for the Kickstarter, and you can get a pre-launch reminder basically for the Kickstarter. So please go do that. Otherwise, we do have a question.
Oh, I got one.
Info about the cooperation for the tankers. So, Eric, we talked about Combat Octopus earlier in the show. It was one of the things that I definitely wanted to point out. And he's an awesome sculptor, really great person to work with. I'm excited about what we're going to come up with. I will have previews on Monday. We'll post those. I do have stuff. I don't know if you can see this, but this is one of his figures, which is the crew commander.
Hold it closer. Hold it closer.
Got to hold it a lot closer. It's hard to coordinate.
Yeah, now we got a fighting chance.
And so what you can see in this model, hopefully, is that the Martyr Commander has his arm over the Milan and his other arm over the gun, binoculars in hand. And this is sculpted from a picture he had. And it's gorgeous. He's got the radio headset on. He's got his hat on. It's just really, really nice. Those will be out Monday. And we have pictures of the Leopard 2 Commander as well in a couple of posts.
In the actual Kickstarter, it'll be an add-on.
It will. For the Kickstarter, the cruise is an add-on. Yeah.
So,
and Combat Octopus is a great sculptor when it comes to figures. I was mentioning earlier that his latest set, he's on both Patreon and My Mini Factory. His latest set was a set of Russians in Chechnya. Fabulous figures. I mean, there's really, really well done. I'm working on painting those right now because they go with our BMPs and our other vehicles very well. Yeah.
He's easy to find. If you just type in Combat Octopus, he's the first hit on Google.
Yeah. I will mention again, Eric asked if it will be an add-on, and the answer is yes. The figures will be an add-on for the Kickstarter. Right. And all that final pricing and stuff I'm not sure of right now, but it's not an inexpensive add-on. Not an
inexpensive add-on.
It's not an expensive add-on. It's relatively cheap, straightforward, and totally worth it.
Totally worth it. Absolutely. Well, I think we two are done, are we not?
I think so. Yeah.
I think it just remains for us to thank all the people who are watching. Thank you very much for watching. It's been a pleasure. And we look forward to receiving your pledges when the Kickstarter goes live. When are we going live, Brad?
We're going live the 19th of January. That's a Friday that we usually go live at a midnight date on my timeline. Might mention that Bob and I are on 2 different continents. And so the Kickstarter will go live midnight Friday, January 19th, and it'll run for 3 weeks.
Awesome.
Right. Again, thanks for everybody for coming by and hanging out with Bob and myself, and we'll see you at the Kickstarter. All right. Thanks, guys.